19 tips for out-of-state real estate investors to create a $10,000 a month passive income, 10 to 30 grand a month passive income in the indie real estate market. Is this tip number 3? Is this tip number 3? Are we recording right now? Are we going? 3 big mistakes to avoid. Why is it the BRRRR method? Explained: buy 20 rentals for 50 grand, all for the cost of one by recycling your money. 3 big mistakes. Oh, I see. James Cameron there. The 3 big mistakes to avoid and do this right so that your properties produce a steady 10 to 30 grand a month. This is a new series just for passive Indianapolis passive investors. Are we recording? Because I thought we were doing the other class. If you're a passive real estate out-of-state investor who wants to invest in Indianapolis and make 10 to 30 grand a month, this series is just for you. You should have at least 100 grand cash and great credit, and you have 3 to 5 years, then this is for you. It all comes down to building your team. A few quick notes before we go. You got to build your team. Got to get serious, crazy people. You have a specific passive income target. Equity, you should understand liquidity and productivity. You need equity that's producing like $3 million, producing at 10%, for example. That would be 300,000, right? You need to have those numbers established and have a plan on getting there. An asset acquisition plan. How many deals are you acquiring? Your team should be able to do this for you. Passive versus active investors. What's the difference? It's going to come down to lead generation, lead conversion, and your fan base, your dealing of your fan base, and the way that you're the fan base nurturing and the way you're working with those people. If you're a passive investor, all you do is stay at home writing checks. Time. The single most important question you'll ever ask yourself is, how will I spend my time today? The single most important thing you'll do with your time, financially speaking, is decide to create passive income. It's a very important step to take. You have the main thing we have is our team targets and timeline. Your team should know what this is. It's really important you screen your team. They should know how you're going to get to 30 grand a month. You should be able to answer that in one sentence with a definite target, a definite timeline. The Forever Fund, we've talked about this. This is the amount of money you need that when it earns 5%, 5 to 10%, 5% is the low end, that you can live on. You have all your monies paid off. It should be 10 to 30 grand a month. So basically you need $2 to $6 million earning 5% a year. And you should know what your number is exactly, and you should be working backwards from that. You establish that, you do that, you have your team do that, and you'll be fine. In 3 to 5 years, you'll be making 10 to 30 grand, no problem. Actually, we have a whole nother, this is a class. I don't think we should be talking about this right now. Are we going over the other stuff right now for you guys? Okay, so we'll come back. I don't think we can record this stuff later and just do this now. The first thing is understand the BRRRR process. How many of you have talked to, part of the assignment, we should change this size here. Part of the assignment was to talk to, this is such a fancy font here. Part of the assignment was to talk to investors. How many of you talked to a real estate investor that was doing BRRRR and had understood that process? They were doing it, okay? All right, raise your hands. Everyone take a look around. Raise your hands. All right, now check this out. It's a very simple process. Everyone's heard of it. People understand it, right? Keep your hand up if the investor you talk to, if one of the investors you talk to, and you only talk to like a few, and one of the investors you talk to, or more, one or more, was in some kind of trouble. They were doing BRRRR and they ran into hiccups, they ran into problems, pretty much every hand. Is that right? Yeah. So this is not widely understood. People don't understand how to do this. So let's go through each section here. First, the quick one sentence of what BRRRR is. You're going to buy a property and you're going to flip it, but you're going to flip it for about 80%. This is like the magic number. You're going to flip it for 80%, and you're basically going to flip it to yourself because you flip it, but you also keep it. And we're going to get a loan on that property for 80%. That's going to be much cheaper than the hard money that we may have used to buy the property. But what that means is that when we buy the property, we have to be into it. All of our costs we've talked about our costs. You guys are clear on this, right? We have the cost of the purchase, first of all. Then we have the holding cost. This includes the monthly payments. This includes the debt service if we have hard money. This includes the rehab, but we'll call the rehab a separate cost. And then we have the closing cost. And we have all the other costs broken down. The deal dissection series, you guys should all be checking out. Everyone should be checking out the deal dissection series. Are we still recording? If we are, the deal dissection series is brilliant. It's some of the most brilliant videos on the entire internet because they go over every step, every cost, step by step through this process. So all of our costs, we have to be below 80%. We want to be, the more below 80% we are, the better, as you guys will see. So that's the first part, the buy, right? Then we have the rehab. This is not that you got to have teams that go out there and do the rehab on these properties. They should be able to do it quickly. We usually do this in 3 draws, which we'll explain why that's important in a second. And then we have the rent. Then we rent the property out. You like this super fancy whiteboard, right? This works better than any of the other ones. And that tablet, I wasn't into that, so I don't mind typing. It's fine. The rent, no, fine. It's okay. It's okay. That was the Surface. The Surface Pro worked pretty well too. It's okay. No, it's fine. So then we rent the property out, right? We rent the property out. We should be able to rent that property out for 1%. We've talked about why that's important. Real quickly, why is that important? We need equity, right? I'm just going to pretend we're shooting when I need to, and they could just kind of edit it later. So we need, if we have $5 million producing at 5%, that's 250 grand a year. That's our forever fund. That means we're going to make 250 grand a year, totally hands off, totally passive, right? There's 2 things that are important here. I didn't talk about liquidity. With real estate, liquidity is not going to be a problem. If you have $5 million worth of real estate, it'll sell for $5 million roughly, right? But if you have a $5 million worth of a business, a small business, well, who knows how you're going to get that money? Are you going to refinance? Are you going to sell it? It's not likely you're going to get, that money's not nearly as liquid as real estate. Real estate's about the most liquid thing there is. Stocks, you could say that too, but stocks can go up and down much more than real estate. estate. Real estate's about the most liquid thing, it's easy to sell. Liquidity just means how quickly can you actually get that number, the 5 million. And you can get it pretty quick with real estate. So liquidity is not a problem. Productivity is what this is. This is the return. How productive is that 5 million? So we're saying 5%. But if we have a property that's at 1%, what happens here? That's 12% a year. So over time, we should be able to get about 75 to 80% of that, or about 8 to 9%. Well, what do you know? We're almost doubling our 5%, right? So that's the difference. If we're doing this at 5 million, instead of 250, we're at 450. We're at 450, 400 to 450,000, right? That's the difference that this makes. That's how important the productivity of equity is. It's super important. But the 1% properties make it easy for us to hit that 8 to 9%. So the rent, we want to be at 1%. Then we refinance. We go to a bank and we say, listen, we want to refinance this and we want to do it at about 80%, roughly 80%. So what happens then, did you make these notes here, this stuff that we're going to go over? Why don't we put that on the next page? We'll go over that later. Okay, so we refinance at 80%. Hopefully all of our costs are well below 80% so we can pull out our cash. And then we repeat and we do the next deal. So if it's so cut and dry, how come everyone has such a problem with it? And this, by the way, is true with so many things. They seem like it's really easy, but all of a sudden people have all kinds of problems with it. Let's go over the duplex examples. This was a Brandon, I believe. We have a deal dissection series on Brooklyn and Brandon. We were into that duplex, a total of $190,000. This was our hero that we're working with. We got the appraisal for $250,000. So I break down the cost. I won't do that. It was like the purchase price was $160 or $140, and then $30,000 of work, I think, and then $10,000 down, right? Is that right? Is that and then closing costs and everything. Is that how we came up with that? I don't know how we came up with that. Okay, I just know that the details, it came out to about $190,000 that we have, right? So we're at $190,000. We get the appraisal at $250,000, and then the refinance was at $200,000. So you get back all the money, all the down payment money, you get back all the hard money costs, and on top of that, walk away with $10,000. Make sense? So is that a good example? Well, we'll see as we move on here. Then we've got the other one, which was Brandon, which the total cost was $240,000. I think the purchase was $180,000, plus we had $40,000 of work or $60,000 of work, something like that. It was quite a bit, and then that includes a holding cost, the private money, the hard money cost, the closing cost, all those costs all together. We're into it for $240,000. The appraisal was at $350,000, right? So now the refinance, I think it just closed today. Is that right? So the refinance is at 80% of $350,000, which is what? I'm going to start throwing shitty. What is somebody say it? $350,000. Okay. Okay. This is a better way to do it. So look, what's 10% of $350,000? 10%. That's 10%. Right, 35. Right. Times 2 is what? 35 times 2, 70. Right. So now we have 350 minus 70, but don't do that. Do 350 minus 50 minus 20. So 350 minus 50 is what? 300, right? Minus 20 is what? 300 minus 20. Very good. Did you already get that before? Okay, good job. Okay, so that's how we can quickly do this in our head, right? So 280,000. So if we're at 240 grand and we refinance at 280 grand, right? Which I think they just closed. We got 40 grand out. Think about this, 40 grand on top of the down payment. So all that money came right back, right? So we got the 10,000 here, and now we got the 40,000 here. And what was the other one? Was it Bernice or something? I think it was Bernie was the D3. That was 50 grand. It was basically the same thing. We were into it for 250, appraisal at 370 or something like that. And so we pull out, 200 to 100 of these three properties on average. If we're pulling out 10, 40, and 50, that's 100 grand. On average from three properties, we're pulling out about 33 grand or $30,000. This is 30,000. We call this the over. 30,000 on top of the down payment, on top of all the expenses, right? But the question here now is, what do we do with this 100 grand, let's say? What do we do with that 100 grand? So we have, the main thing here is the first $30,000 that was used here, right? That was used to buy these two. Right now we just finished. We have the seventh one acquired. I'm not going to go over the numbers. We're doing deal dissections on a lot of these, but there's 7 acquired. This hero has now done 7 deals, 7 properties now with the same $30,000. Does that make, okay, if there's anything I'm saying that doesn't make sense, let me know. Don't hesitate, just ask, right? This is using $30,000 to buy 7 of these properties. Right now on these 3 properties, his equity would be, let's say they're each, it's more than, because I'm assuming they're all 200 grand, but they're more than that. But it would be, let's say it's just 600 grand. I mean, at least, right? So he has 600 grand of equity, and it is already producing 1% a month, because this property right now, what was the payment on this? His payment was like $1,400 before. Then he refinanced at $200,000. His payment's $900 now, and each side is rented for $2 grand a month, or for $1,000. So he's getting, which by the way, we let people do this math. Don't tell people this, because people are like, well, wait a minute. He's already going to be making cash flow. What's this negative cash flow 3 to 5 years? There's 2 things that make investors or buyers or anybody a good investor or buyer. It's resources and expectations. And we want to make sure that people understand the whole point here is to build our forever fund. Don't rely on any money. Any cash you get for the first few years, we just want to throw back into the property, if nothing else, on the balance of that mortgage. This one, each side rents for $1,200, so it's $2,400 against this $240,000, right? There's $240,000. $30,000 and we're getting $2,400. So it's about a 1% property. But now it's going to be less than 1% because we refinance at $280,000. But that's okay because I believe the payment is like $1,500. So $1,500 a month on this payment, bringing in $2,400 a month. And I think on this one, it's about the same. So it's about $1,000 gross positive above what the payment is. So here we're at over $1,000. Here we're at just about $900. Then here we're at about $1,000. So on average, our gross rent is $1,000 more than our expenses, our debt service on the mortgage. You get what I'm saying? And we got all these properties for the $30,000. In fact, now his equity position with all 7 properties is close to $2 million, and all of it was done. Do you love how I'm just making these random notes? We should just print this out. Like, this is the secret to getting rich. But this is really it. $30,000, $30,000, and just recycling the same money again and again to now control $2 million worth of property. But how come everybody runs into problems and they don't make this happen? Let's go to our, you should completely understand all this. The 3 big mistakes. So what are the 3 mistakes people make with the Forever Fund? So a passive investor, active investors should understand this. The number one thing is you don't have your Forever Fund established. You don't have this right here. 5 million at 5%. This is what I'm building. This is what I'm doing. The reason this is so important is because this becomes our North Star. Remember, there's only 3 reasons we do flips. We do flips so that you can build your capital to get buy and hold. The whole game here is to have enough buy and hold properties that are paid off, 10, 15, 20 properties paid off that produce 30, 40, 50 grand a month in passive income. Maybe you need more properties, but you get the idea. 20 properties paid off that easily make you a totally passive 10, 20, $30,000 a month. Makes sense? That's the game. Everything we do revolves around that, right? That becomes our North Star. So the only reason we flip is to get capital, to have a stronger capital position to do buy and hold. That's the number one reason. That's the reason one. The second reason we do it is to pay for the negative cash flow that we incur while doing buy and hold. And the third reason is to pay off these mortgages, to pay off these $200,000 here, $300,000 or $280,000 or $200,000 here, $280,000 here. And we just start doing flips to pay down these mortgages. That is when if you understand the Forever Fund, it's very easy to understand. The Forever Fund is the amount of money you need to live for the rest of your life and to basically, retire. And every financial decision you make comes down to, I need to get to that level. So the first thing you need to have is that Forever Fund established. You know what that is, what that number is. The second thing is the team qualifying. Like I said, aside from knowing where you want to be, this is the most important thing for a passive investor. You got to get a team that's crazy, that's driven, nuts, enthusiastic, badass people. By the way, if you want to apply, go to bigria.com, click on the top, the Indy Turnkey, or text Anna 317-969-5619, and we can see if you're a good fit. And then the other part here is regularity. The reason why people, if you pull out this cash, the $100,000 cash for the average investor, we actually just did the investor you were talking to, he's got the cash, he doesn't know what to do because they're out of business until their next deal. That's how all these iBuyHomes guys are. In order to have the regularity of transactions, in order to buy a property, at 80% is okay. If all we do is get our money back and our down payment back, that's okay. We can reuse the 30 grand. But when you know how to lead generate, when you know how to generate leads and convert leads, that's when you can start pulling 40, 50 grand out of these properties. And this is what our hero's doing in this case. And the reason he's able to do this is because he's working with people, us, who understand how to generate leads. The number one reason why people are going to fail with the BRRRRs because they don't buy correctly, they may rehab incorrectly, there may be other issues, but they don't understand that their purchase price and the rent are very important because this is going to produce the productivity that our equity has, right? So you have to understand that you buy correctly, and you're never going to be able to buy correctly unless you can generate leads well. It's a secret to being able to do deals and to do deals with regularity and have a regular stream of saying, I want to be able to say, I have $30,000 and in 2 years, I'm going to have 9 properties or 7 properties or whatever. Do you get what I'm saying? Because the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you have a regularity of deals, a regularity of transactions. And that also helps you build your team to do the refinance. Your whole team gets done. So those are the 3 big mistakes. That's why people fail with the BRRRR. They don't have a Forever Fund. They don't have their goal established, the North Star. 2, they don't qualify their team. Their team's a bunch of LCs. And 3, they don't have the regularity of transactions because they didn't qualify their team. And they're not even doing it because they don't have the Forever Fund established. You do these 3 things and it ain't no thing, man. You'll get to 10, 20, 30 grand a month a lot easier, a lot quicker than you think. Know each part of the BRRRR and the numbers for each. So we just went over this, each part of the BRRRR. Does anyone have any questions on this at all? Is everyone totally clear? Each part of the BRRRR, what each of these things mean? Yeah, and the numbers on it. We're totally clear on that. Okay, so the side flip models. We talked about this before. Basically what we do, so this is a simple way for us to spend that 30 grand and go out and get $5, $10 million worth of real estate. But eventually what's going to happen is we're going to run into different challenges, different limitations. Some people might say, oh, you can only have 5 mortgages or 10 mortgages in your name or whatever. That's when we start saying, okay, since we're on a schedule, we're picking up 2 properties a quarter or 3 properties a quarter or whatever. We know when we're going to run into that problem way ahead of time. We can deal with these issues way upstream. So what we do is we start flipping properties. So we take out this 100 grand, for example. We say, okay, let's go out and do a couple flips and let's pay off this property up here, this property number 1. We pay that property off. We talked about this in our other class about how to accelerate payoffs. Then we get a line of credit on that property. We use that line of credit to pay off property number 2. And then we do the flips to pay off property number 1. Why do we use the line of credit? We talked about this before, right? Because immediately when you pay down the line of credit, your payment goes down. So we can maintain this high cash flow without having to refinance the property. Because if you pay down a mortgage, your payment doesn't necessarily change. Always know what to do with and for the over. The over is the amount here above like the 50 grand, like that you get back your money and your down payment. So what to do for it? In order to get this over at such a significant amount, you got to buy right, and you got to be able to know that you can rent the property right. Because if we can buy right and rent the property right, and we're in touch with our mortgage, our underwriter, we can make sure that they understand why this appraisal is important and why it needs to be at the numbers that we're gonna kind of give them the contours of the deal, so that we can make sure that they understand what we're doing. Because sometimes these people don't get, they're maybe not as familiar with this, and especially if they go to like a Foreclosure Nation or Nation for whatever, they get some weird. They may have to do that because of their deal. They might get some appraisal that doesn't make sense. That's why you need to be in touch with the underwriter. That's why your team needs to be in touch with the underwriter to be able to make sure that they complete these deals. But what do we do once you get that over? Once you get this 80 grand or 50 grand or 30 grand or 40 grand, whatever amount, what do you do with it? Now the clock is ticking, right? The velocity of money, you got to get into a deal. And that again requires that you have a regularity of deals so you can immediately plug that into a deal. We only pay half HACIT with the cash or a line of credit. Does that make sense? You understand why we're doing line of credit now, right? Because we got to get the mortgage. We don't want the mortgage on a property. A line of credit's much better, because if we pay down 20 grand, that payment is going to be lower immediately, and now we have the cash, so we can get more better cash flow. So we only pay off HACIT with the cash or a line of credit. Equity collection versus equity creation. Liquidity and productivity. We talked about this a second ago. Liquid and productive. The equity is either liquid or productive or both. Well, I mean, it is both, but how much it is an important thing. We are collecting equity. That's what you're doing. You're building up your 5 or 10 million, and you're doing it with the same money to recycle it again and again, which I think we're going to talk about. What makes the money recycler work, right? This is not the reason why people fail at this. Like I said, the top 3 mistakes they make. But it's not just about having the process of being able to go out and find deals and be able to refinance them at 80%. It's and to fix them up quickly and rent them out and get all that done. It's the ability to do this subtractively, and also the ability to do it with regularity. You've got to be able to come in and say, you know what, the money recycling, you go to any one of our heroes and you can ask them, where exactly are you going to be? They'll say, you know what, in 5 years, I'll be making 70 grand a month and passive income, and here's exactly how we're getting there. Here's exactly what we're doing. We have the entire machine in place, and that's how what makes the money recycler work is ultimately it comes out of lead generation and converting leads and building fan base nurturing. The better, I know this sounds kind of weird because it's the better, like we got probably, 9 or 10 deals this week from just people that we had, neighbors of people that we had done deals with, because we go so above and beyond. We give them gift baskets, we take care of them. We go out, if we hear it's somebody's birthday, we throw them this giant fucking birthday party. We get the signs of the yard and everything. And we go all way overboard. I love the nurturing process. And Anna's very good at this too. I've been really impressed at how well you've done this. But the secret to doing this is to build your 77s. It's a whole process I teach. If you're an active investor, you've probably heard me talk about this. If you're not, if you're a passive investor, again, all you're doing is staying at home and writing checks. You got to qualify a team and make sure that they have a network of people, that they have relationships built, and a fan base established where they can do these deals with regularity. Because what makes the recycler work is you have deals and you have regularity to have the next deal to be done. It's so exciting, man. I love looking at this stuff. And it's just so inspiring to be able to do something when you figured something out. One of the most important things you can do is help other people do it. And how cool is it that we can do that and make money at the same time? It's amazing, man. I'm so thankful and blessed. What a time to be alive. I'm so glad for this. So thankful and just grateful for all this, for every bit of it. Just for you watching this, for everybody, all of our heroes. I get emotional when I talk about it, man. It's not that hard to go out. There's so many people that are living so far below where they can. And just the idea of getting passive income, that's the difference. That would change their life. Understanding and spotting secret weapons. Look, the only reason why you should be looking for nobody mountains. What that means is, and you should, whenever you're sitting there thinking about working with the team, ask yourself, what's so badass about them? What makes them so above and beyond? You guys see that sign up there? It's not good enough to win. You have to be, this mantra we've been using, it has to be sensational. Sensational. It's Mike Tyson. It's not good enough to be, if you're going to pick your team, you've got money, you've got income, and people can take care of your baby, right? This is your investment. You got to pick the craziest people out there, the most dedicated, the most enthusiastic, most passionate, the people who have to see and create the most opportunity and prosperity for others. The secret weapons, knowing how to spot them, is basically seeing a level of hustle that it's so far beyond anybody else that you could possibly work with, that it's like, man, I gotta work with those people. So what makes this whole thing run, this machine run, is understanding that, like, as soon as we get a deal, we market it for renting and we market it for buyers immediately. Because of gentrification, we also run the lender agent model, which is a whole nother thing. We do 20, 30 things on each one of these deals that is so far beyond what anybody else is willing to do. Anytime somebody comes into our world, we do more for them than anybody else will possibly do. That's what you should look look for it. That level of devotion, that level of obsession. It's really obvious. It's as obvious as horns when you look for it. It's obvious as horns, right? You must see real life examples. This is, again, what the Deal Dissection series is all about. We're taking real deals, breaking down all the numbers, and it's not just, oh, here's a deal we did and here's how it worked out. Every week you get an update and you get to see, like, when there's delays, you get to see delays. You get to see what's happening with every step of the process. It's what we call Tetrasine, figuring things out, thinking quick on your feet, problem solving real quick. You got to be able to do that. Your team has got to be able to do that quickly. If they're not doing that, you're going to have a bunch of LCs. You're going to be like one of these people. So many people right now try to get into turnkey investing and they fail because their team is a bunch of LCs. These people are not dedicated. They're not committed. You need hungry, serious, amazing people on your team, and that will get you where you want to be. It'll open all kinds of doors. I did say that before. All right. This is a new series. Yeah, to build your team, get the passive active parts going. The BRRRR method, buying 20 rentals for all the cost of just buying one property. You can recycle your money. You should be totally understood about that. Eliminate the LCs from your team. The key, Epictetus said, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. I've said this before. If this is not a high frequency thought for you, if you don't go through these classes and have chills and butterflies and get excited with all the potential, opportunity, possibility, be filled with love and gratitude, then this is not for you. I'm not for you. Our team's not for you. And I'm sorry for that. But you should go find somewhere else. Your life is too short, man. You can't be led down blind alleys. You don't have time to reverse and correct course. Get around people who get you in that place, that state, that place of gratitude, that place of love and compassion and wanting to change the world and believing that you can and going out and making decisions that will do that. Policies protect. You don't need a parachute to go skydiving. You need a parachute to go skydiving twice. As we talk these conversations, as you have these conversations, and a few of you have said the same thing, it's amazing how people were so unprotected they didn't know it. They were skydiving without a parachute. They didn't know it because they picked the wrong team to do BRRRR, or they didn't get educated on what the process is and how important it is to not just get a deal, but to do it correctly. And when you're out there, just like every other I Buy Homes guy, you're out there like scrambling, running around like your nuts are on fire. You're not actually building equity in relationships, which is the most important equity. And that's ultimately where the best deals are going to come from, because the best deals are never found. They're always made. And it comes out of the skill set that you have in making that happen. This is a great quote here. Please qualify who you listen to. Really, you gotta be so many people out there listening to, especially not just in Indy, not just in the Midwest, but all over, to listen to the wrong type of people. Check this out. Isaac Asimov, brilliant guy. We talk a lot about robotics in the future. There's a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there always has been. The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread winding its way through our political and cultural life, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means my ignorance is equal to your knowledge. There's so many people in real estate that believe that my ignorance is equal to your knowledge. Don't let that happen. Ultimately, what is all this stuff about? I love this. Don't die with music still in you. There's an old saying about art that each of us is like a brush and the world is a canvas, right? Each of us have paint, and the saying is, don't die with art still in you. Don't die with paint still in you. It's been modified. Don't die with music still in you. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. Harriet Tubman. If you know her story, the Underground Railroad, the idea that you can see everything in in anything, right? You can look at one thing and see something else. I'd ask you to just fill this question. I was built to improve human lives by blank. Just ask yourself. I've asked this to thousands of people. We all talk about this every day on our team here. If you were to just think about this question for a second, I was built to improve human lives by what? What do you feel like you were built to do? Then if I were to ask you, are you doing that right now? Chances are you're not, right? What's the bridge between you doing what you're doing right now and what you're supposed to do, your destiny, what you were meant to do, what you were built to do by God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, that you were touched and blessed and put this little divine deposit in your soul? What's the difference? Why aren't you doing it? And there's only one reason. It is passive income. If you got to 10 to 20, 30 grand a month, 40 grand a month, 50 grand a month, you could buy back your time, and it's not about not doing anything or going on a beach and relaxing. We're not interested in doing that. We want to get you to where you can go and make the most contribution to mankind that you're supposed to make, what you're supposed to do with your life. I was built to improve human lives by blank. That's what we want to get you to do. It's amazing. A truly inspired person, it's the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you eat, the way you carry yourself is completely different when you're inspired. It's, to breathe life into it. That's what the original meaning, the root of that word. It's what you can do to others. You can be inspiring to others just by the way they look at you. You don't even need to say anything, and you instantly inspire the people around you and others. This is what all of our stuff is about. And I know we get kind of like materialistic with it. It might sound like a little like, you got to get rich. You got to get to 50 grand a month, but you got to do it so that you can do cool shit like this. Because if you don't do this, you're going to be stuck in that rat race and you're going to die with music still in you. Don't let that happen. You can make this happen. All right. The BRRRR method: buy 10 rentals for the cost of one by recycling your money. We went over the 3 biggest mistakes. Right now, all of us should understand all this. The 3 mistakes: you don't have your forever fund established. You haven't qualified the right team, and you're not you don't have a regularity of transactions established, and then that comes down to how well their business building machine is. If they don't have it done correctly, man, you're going to get a bunch of LCs and you're going to get, appropriate results. Know each part of the burr, the numbers for each, exactly where our numbers need to be. Why 1% is so important? Why do we need to be at 80% and below 80%? You should know each part of that now. The side flip models, how we can go and we can start creating equity by building down, by throwing that money down, by having, we start our buy and hold on one side, then we start our side flip on the other, the flip mode, right? And the flipping, you should understand the 3 reasons we do it. We only do it to get it in a position for capital to do buy and hold. That's one reason, the first group. Second group, we do it to pay down to pay off, to handle the negative cash flow. And third is to actually pay down our equity positions. But these are the free and clear models. Always know what to do with and for the over. How do we get the over? It's we've got to buy right. The over, again, gets right back into the properties. We always use it to go back in the properties. We always pay houses off with a line of credit or cash. Equity collection versus creation. Know the difference. Liquidity, productivity. If you understand this stuff, you guys are out there, you're going to be so far ahead of everybody else. I love this, man. Get out there. Take the world, man. Be sensational. What makes the money recycler work? You've got to be able to take that same 30 grand and be able to create $10 million. You can do it. 2 things have to happen. We collect equity and we also pay off our debt service as we need to introduce the flip mode stuff, right? Understanding the secret weapons. When we sit down, we have a lot of companies that come to us through our incubators and accelerators that we have, a lot of startups that come to us. And the first thing we look for is, why would this company succeed? And there's 2 things that happen. Number one, it's the idea. Maybe the idea is so amazing, but a lot of great ideas like Airbnb and stuff, they've been around for, over a decade before they got anywhere. So it's not the idea that's such a great idea. It's always, usually in almost every case, comes down to the team, the people. And Paul Graham, the Y Combinator, the most famous Silicon Valley startup, the most famous startup, the most famous accelerator in the world, he said something that's always stuck with me. He said that the secret is not the biggest secret between the people who make it. And he's done like Stripe and Airbnb and a whole bunch Twitch and a whole bunch of others. He said it's not that it's the business they come up with is not the one they're going to end up with, but it's the process. These people are so driven that they do something, and on the way of doing that thing, it's what they find along the way, and they have the knowledge, the self-awareness to know that they may not know what opportunity looks like, and they listen to other people who do, and then that becomes the opportunity that they pursue. I say that because you've got to understand, you've got to be able to look at, when you're trying to screen your team as a passive investor or as an active investor, you should understand what a secret weapon is. That's ultimately what matters. When we look at companies that we buy, we always ask ourselves, what's going to be different when we buy it? What are we bringing to the table? And that's what you should ask yourself before you look at any real estate deal, or you look at having a team do a real estate deal. What's so special about them? Why will they go out in this market that's competitive and that's, highly whatever, all the BS excuses people use? Why are they going to be able to kill it and destroy everyone else and win in a way that's sensational? How are they going to be able to do that? It should be obvious to you. They should have a nobody mountain. They should be able to point to a resource or an accumulation of effort and skill and expertise and brilliance and helping and compassion and caring and viral volunteerism and Big RIA is what I'm talking about. But go to bigria.com and you'll see that's what I'm talking about. A nobody mountain like that. You should, but your team, you should always look for that. When you're looking at hiring your team or looking at people on your team, find something that's going to help, a secret weapon that they bring to the table, something they bring to the table that nobody else is going to be willing to do. And to make sure that when somebody comes in their world, you treat them, you do more for them than anybody else will ever do. That's exactly what we do. We've got, mountains of testimonials that show that. You got to look for that. And you got to be able to spot that out. Go to my stuff on the Nobody Mountain, on screening people, on providers. I also made a class on how to make sure you get a good property manager. Those are all good questions to use and what to look for when you're talking to people. You must see real life examples. Again, the Deal Dissection series are the most amazing videos possibly on the internet when it comes to creating income ascension, social mobility, and doing it with real estate, because these are real life deals, all with heroes, and you get to see every step. It's not like, we fast forward to the end. Here's how we made 50 grand. No, you see every step along the way. I really like that process. So those are the 3 things, the 3 mistakes: know each part of the burr, side flip models, flip mode stuff, understand how the over works, the cash or a line of credits, how we pay off properties. I explain why, equity collection, the money recycler, secret weapons, and you must see real life examples. You got to see, man, when people say the number one thing to look at, if you're looking at Indianapolis Turnkey or Turnkey anywhere, is what is the definition of success? When you work with investors, how do I know I succeeded? And you want to hear something like 10 grand a month, 30 grand a month, something like that, right? And then you need to be able to trace your finger back and find people that have done that. I've said this before. Our team, we have gotten more human beings to 10 to 30 grand a month than anybody else on the planet. From 0 to 10 to 30 grand a month, and well beyond 10 to 30 grand a month than anybody else on the planet. Nobody has done it from 0 more than we have. And it's something to really, we've kind of obsessed on. It's really an amazing thing. And I'm only saying that because it's important that you see that level. First, define success, and then show me where that success is. If you do those things, I see so many people out here struggling. As you guys saw, these are like heartbreaking stories, right? If you go with this stuff, it'll make you much smarter and much better, and you'll be able to go out and create passive income a lot better. Thank you so much. I love you.